And part 2, emanating sovereignty, part 2. As such as the nawal refer to the tonal, and this awakened life being referred to as the dream of the dream, and that being called the tonal in the nawal teachings of ancient Mexico. We, as the beings of the now, with all experiential bodies, also have the sensory canals of the nasal passages, of the eardrums. We as the experiential love-based beings also have the nose, in each are knowing our own expansion. And every scent plays a part in the envelope of the I am being. Each body is connected to the rhythm and rhyme and undercurrents of true compassion, for each heartbeat and each breath is sacred, which is why we are in part 2 of Emanating Sovereignty. We've talked about geomancy. We've talked about your specific grids that you're offering sort of as a product for people, gridding their house. And we also do have a couple more people here on part 2 with Eric Adamo, just coming straight out of Shasta. And I'm here coming out of Tenino, Washington. And I'd just like to go ahead and continue this talk of part 2 with Eric. If you'd like to share anything else, just continuing. I know we had that technical problem, but I'd like to open up the passing of this talking stick onto you, Eric.
Yes,
and I have deep respect for you. Still heightened.
I appreciate that reading, that tonal intention. Intention, even without words, comes through our tone. Either the tone our body is giving off, aka frequency, or the tone our inner biome is giving off, and even the tone of our choices and the tone we receive and transceive from source. The message, poetic activation I'd like to read is one still in the making. There's actually one more part to it. And the interesting thing about this poem of an activation, I channeled the title of it about several years ago. And I wrote a message to myself like a time capsule on Facebook and also in one of my personal journals. And all these years later, right before going north, going to Tenino and visiting Debbie, going to Vancouver, British Columbia, where I meet a few soul family and a dearly beloved Megan, the remaining part of this poem finally started to come through. And the interesting thing about it, it was about choices in our present time and in nonlinear time. And this poem, the title of it's called Source Points and Choice Points. Through many epochs and eons of many timeless years, as the many more eventful eras of marvelous millennial endears beyond mere historical ages, we each are given choices, either knowingly, consciously, or choices with little to no voices, unknowingly, unconsciously. Every time we vocalize to virtuously localize our rejoices, this points to sources juxtaposed, circumventilating joints that lead to such angular sacred semantics of gridding divine dynamics. As you carefully choose to not languishly lose, and you co-creatively choose to triumphantly win with really good news, you can charismatically cruise life's challenges, all so smooth, like cosmic conscience clues, that points us to omnimorphic, flawless muse. These vibrant visual views you embody to have are like greatly aspirant, musically mountainous pinnacle pews. To emanate your strongly courageous sovereign shoes that'll work with such awesomely source-connected, superconscious, spiritual soul family star crews. Compassionately charismatic choice points to thee, totally true, allies keys, invigoratively aerodynamic allies trees, free-flowing, fortunate sources as sacred sites, grid nodal points. The Norse's, Vikings, navigational allies, burly boats and crusading hardy horses. Avalonians, unicorns, Pegasuses, insightfully energizes, inspirationally magically vibrant virtuosos, cosmic conscience, creativity causes, councils and alliances, unusually unalike, to make miraculously marvelous peace treaties, inter and intra, planetarily, galactically, cellular, stellar, dimensionally, and personally, as uni, multi, and omni, faceted, dimensional, present, and omniscient, functional, celestial, and ancestral, plus terrestrial, greater, spiritualist, globalist, terra nobis gem stars, graciously grounding into the most mega powerful, super synchronous, synergistic, uber inner earth crystalline cities, cosmic universal, galactic humans citizenry, co-creational core, and skies, sky realms as star nations with their lightship captains heroically helping helms, liberational allies, enliveningly leading to a luxuriously lavish, starlit, serenading, sovereigns, League of Nations, paradise worlds, and paradise shores, 6th to 9th density Gaia, as the beautifully brilliant of brightest lights is an inside joke there. Brightest lights with elementals highest frequencies. And the part of the joke too is always remember to laugh and have fun. Sprites. These sprites are near and dear to the ocean's cresting cozy coves, resembling pine cones, and kneading needles like trees' roots, revealing pro-peaceful portals, pursuits, as non-mooring, galactic cruising, levitational boots, peacemaking, musically magical, melodious, joyously fun-loving, kindred partners, and soul family and friends, empowered freedoms as timeless tonals, twinkling tunes. And there is a part after all that I have written on paper somewhere that'll eventually be created into this. But this video that we're doing, plus other recordings in the future, will be a part of this ongoing saga of what I call star poetry, or I'm calling this book that will eventually be written and published the Book of Stars. And it is soul family oriented. It's encoded. It's ancient, future, galactic, all at the same time. And the intention with that one was to help us remember the different levels and veils, helping us know beyond the level of forgetfulness into the level of remembrance. So even if we couldn't compute what the heck I just said, it's not me saying it. It's Source saying it through me. And we're all there applauding each other on, rooting each other on, deciphering the source code, the source points and the choice points as we go and flow. Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you so much. That's genius. Well written and well expressed as well. I love that. I mean, that's a whole teaching in itself, using the the poetry expression in full on, full blast, because we've developed ourselves enough to let down all the old potential stigmas, you know what I mean, and just allow a flow to come out so we get to those deeper levels. And the laughter always is there to provide the neutralization of polarity or charge, because we are existing through all of these times, and then when someone puts a ballpoint pin down and allows it to be an artery for themselves, they just got past the barrier of me separated from this tool I'm using to express. Because where does our blood stop in our body? Some people will contract diseases from people because they don't have the protection of the belief of the body ending whenever they come to their partner, or they have their children always around, getting into their blood, because that can happen, which is why actually expressing yourself and using a tool to express, knowing that whatever you write down, there's nothing wrong with it. It's actually a jetpack. It's like a booster for other people who are looking for the newness to life that they forgot was there all the time. Because people told him, "Hey, you can't say the truth in such a manner. It's too real." But like whenever some people do poetry, that's when they're able to like just put fire on paper, and it's a sacred fire ceremony connection without the fire, because that's the power of ceremony. That's the power of doing the grid work, doing the geomancy, and placing your essence in the place you live. So that's important. Very important. So we'll have some sort of free flow show in the future too, dealing with that star poetry as well.
Yeah.
So that's super cool. So I've been into that a lot too. I'll freestyle and things like that with friends and notice the changes in my own blockages I had, by judging myself, or whatever example y'all want to hear. You'll find it if you free flow yourself onto the paper.
Yeah. The most fascinating thing I find with that particular poem is not like any other poem I've written. None of them really are. They're always unique. Is these poems are they are stories, and they have sometimes characters in them, and they're short stories in the form of poetry. But that particular one fascinates me the most because I wrote only the title many years ago to prove if I can experience nonlinear time, if there was actually a way to prove it, and somehow interpersonal proof through the title, then creating the words was then the proof that nonlinear time is real. The spherical time is real, and I experienced it on paper and and it's still not done because there's one last stanza that I have written that hasn't been typed yet. When it starts to get typed, then that last little level or tier of nonlinear time will connect whatever was going on several years ago. Some of those experiences were in Ohio and New Jersey and places across the East Coast to the West Coast. And that last little stanza, I know, will have something to do with the eve of 2020. And not putting any magical emphasis on 2020, but knowing that through the Akash and through my higher self, that 2020 would be a year of reckoning, a year of awakening, bigger than anybody might try to prophesize, bigger than even what 2012 was about. And people will say, well, nothing happened on 2012. And I experienced some crazy things happen in 2012 that will never be documented, will never be put down on paper. It'll just be a year that everyone will chalk up as, well, either nothing happened, and if something did happen, well, who actually experienced those happenings? And they were occurring through different realities and dimensions, and here we are all these years later. And you can, with poetry, there's an algorithmic flow that can be just like mathematics and astronomy and musical symphony all in one. And when you get those three energies combined in the poetry, that's when the star soul activations start to happen. And that in itself is its own prayer in gritting and in crystalline energy. And when enough people can start to think again in a non-linear way, when enough people on the planet can start reading and experience again in a more spherical way, then we can begin to tap into our sixth and seventh senses and higher. And one of the primordial senses is telepathy. And that telepathy is spherical. It's not as linear as people think. And when we get into that spherical mindset, we will then tap into our higher selves, our higher Christ selves. Call it what you will. Still, it's our higher selves, and there's different cultures calling it different things. And crystal gritting has a big part to all of that. And I know in every fiber of my being the intention about these crystal gritting kits and these classes that can be taught how to grid your home, how to grid your business, how to grid your car. And there's entire packages that I've thought up and envisioned with my mind and soul and heart, how these different packages of gridding enhances and improves the environment and of everyone's life. And it's an untapped market. And the crystals, as they're awakening alongside us, they're all prompting us to begin tapping into our own innate technology, our own natural technology, and our crystalline morphogenetic technology. And the funny joke I'm hearing, and it's a bit of a joke and a bit of a serious energy behind it, is there are energies that are so fast, they're faster than speeds of light. And the crystals will show you exactly what that means. It's not the amount of crystals that you have. It's really what you're able to do with the crystals and how they're working with you as allies, as healers, as friends. They are your friends and healers in their own way too. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. That's awesome. In the how you emphasized in the foundations of working with those crystals, that you're allowing the friendship, the lightheartedness, rather than the stern, gritting hardness of not being able to make a friend out of your tool, because that's something important. There's an old paradigm of master and slave, and this deals with cars and different vehicles that are powered on horsepower. There's a slave cylinder for your clutch or your brake. There's a slave cylinder, and there's a master cylinder. That's the big reservoir that feeds to this slave cylinder. So, master and slave, these words are all encoded with the old ways of seeing it first, rather than going into it with your amazing vehicle that you're traveling in. Because really, who says that you're not in a time machine when you're traveling on the road? Especially when you're on a pilgrimage or a journey, who says that it's based on horsepower, which really comes from people who used a horse inside of a mill, and they went around like 144 times before the horse died, and they made that into horsepower and kept that recording going for like the trains, or whatever they were using to gauge time. I don't know if that's a little too far out there, but these old paradigm concepts are really old spells of the past that are no longer working because we're not consenting to allowing the false light grid to be our grid, because we have lived our lives and loved in our own particular way who we are, who we came to be right now. And then that once you get to the now moment and you're present, that's the best thing you could offer anyone, especially if you refined a skill such as the grid work and the different geomancy or just a different Akashic record reading, being there for whoever's coming to you to get an exchange of energy. And we did have a couple more listeners on here too. I know your friend Lisa got the direct link. So is she? Are you there, Lisa?
It looks like she's away at the moment.
Oh, hello.
Yeah.
Hi there. Yeah, I was just getting some tea and walking around.
Nice.
Yeah.
Very smart. Doing some minor grid work. But would you? So I heard you knew a little bit about, or a lot about, geomancy. Did you say that you have a book?
Yeah, I do.
Well, do you want to go ahead and give an introduction to all the audience of who you are and what you're offering in your
Okay.
base of knowledge?
Well,
Thank you.
hi. Hi everyone. I've known Eric for a while, since 2012. I think we met, and I just randomly clicked on a link. I didn't even know what this was going to be, so I'm really not offering anything. But the way these things happen, he's kind of laughing. Well, I don't know if we're all here together. I think it's pretty significant. And I feel like I'm more like intuitively tune in with the earth grids. I haven't really formally studied it, but I did have the privilege of being, in proximity and working with many people who I would say were more like master, earth gritters, over the years, just people that I've been able to be in ceremony with. We did a lot of work on the mounds here in Ohio, which it's turning out that what I've always intuitively felt, having grown up around here and just being exposed to experiences on these mounds, I felt there was very significant energy here, and apparently these what I would refer more to as runes or earthworks are way more extensive than what we were initially told, or even that people generally knew about, and they're finding more and more. And I feel like those experiences led me to connect more with the books and the people. So I kind of went at learning about it that way. And I consider myself more of a healer. I practice Reiki, and I am very connected with the earth and the animals and the star beings and this type of thing. And, I've studied a lot of the I Am teachings, and I've traveled to Mount Shasta a few times, which is one place that I do love very much. And, well, I just feel like this is very positive, that we're here together. And I'm just very grateful to be here, and thank you all for sharing. It's really great just to, hear everyone.
Yeah, it's great to meet you too on the live recording. It's pretty awesome. Well, my name's Ryne Eichman, and I created this show, Emanating Sovereignty, a while back, mostly regarding with mostly directed at the legal form of sovereignty, and about all the ways that people get tacit consent through paperwork, legal paperwork, and things like that. And I did just a few shows in the past. I maybe did like 3 shows. I had a private attorney general on, just outing the system in a quick video. But I decided people rely a lot on information from videos, being in the age that we're at right now, where everything is a finger click away in this information age, and we're all sharing information online that can change someone's life because of the dopamine reaction from them experiencing a video. But that may be a temporal thing, and I wouldn't want to see people ending up losing their sovereignty and being locked up or anything like that just because of some video. So I decided to revamp this emanating sovereignty idea and have on guests who I see who are masterful in their own way, who are mindful and there during the spaces, not losing themselves. Because a lot of people who are still stuck on the system of past paradigms, of things just falling apart, usually get lost in the spaces, and they lose themselves in the down times of the dark nights of the soul, or many people are sharing the emotional trauma rather than healing it. So it's awesome to have you here also, Lisa, as a healer and as someone who people are learning from. Could you tell me what is the name of your book and your full name?
Oh, the book that I had was called Earth Memory. I could grab it off the shelf probably if you guys might be interested in. And I think it was one of the books that was really activating that I actually showed Eric like at a time during when I met him. Like I would just like intuitively know, ooh, you need this, but I couldn't tell you like exactly why. I wouldn't say, oh, well, in 5 years from now you're gonna be doing these crystal grids and traveling all over and blah blah blah. But actually, well, it's really interesting. I kind of started out as an artist and a journalist, but I wound up working in the legal field. And I didn't know why, but I knew there had to be a reason. And, it's okay. It's kind of interesting. And I've been doing that for like 10 years now. So I find that I'm really learning a lot. I studied a lot of law and public administration, and just really kept studying. And at the very same time, I was studying all the spiritual stuff. And I feel like what everything really comes down to is universal law, which is, it's not something that anyone can say, I can prove this is an immutable universal law. But I do believe there are these things that govern our lives as far as being in a physical human body, and sharing that space with others. And I feel that we do need a completely new system, but at the same time, we can't just snap our fingers and boom, it's there, because we live in a very complicated world, and we're also going through a huge shift, which isn't something that I don't think anyone really knows what that's going to look like. But I was talking with our friend Sunning Hill, and we were actually speaking today, and I asked her, I said, Sunny, what's going to happen here, because sometimes, we're very hopeful, but on the outside, things look very bleak. So she said, don't worry. She goes, I think it's good what's happening. She said, because you know what, for a long time, she was kind of talking about like the New World Order and stuff, but she's saying, all this stuff was going on behind the scenes. And some people would get like a snippet of it, but nobody really knows what's all going on or who's doing it, or, there's no proof. There's very little proof. Of course, the proof is there, but we don't all have it. So she said the more that gets revealed, even if the system starts to break down, it's better than having this thing go on behind the scenes, because we were talking about the food, and I had to completely stop eating a lot of foods that I never had a problem eating in my life before. I never had any digestive problems or anything. And I cannot eat gluten. I cannot eat most grains. It has to be purely organic. And I know, Eric, when I met you, you were doing this and you were very adamant about don't eat that Subway sandwich. Don't even touch it. And I was just like, I can eat this. There's no problem here. But now it got to a point where in the past 2 years, I kept getting sicker and sicker for no apparent reason. And I finally just cut out like all the grains. So I'm eating, very little, but I'm feeling better. And she said she feels that the food has been weaponized by GMOs and also this glyphosate, which comes in the form from Monsanto. And it's becoming so prevalent that it's gotten into our entire food chain. And we know, if you study about the gut, we know that the gut affects the brain. The gut is almost like a brain in a human body. And so it affects our consciousness, as well as our health. And so this is very important. But, her bottom line was, she said, well, there's two realities forming. But it's not like we're totally separate. So people who are conscious and spiritual and striving to make a difference, which is probably what Ryne would call sovereign, that would be a part of that, like just a whole new consciousness arising, where people are awake and they want to make their own choices. They want to help, and they want, different things, but always in a positive, benevolent direction. And that there's also the people, well, like Ryan said, they're on the tit or whatever. I thought that was so funny. They're sucking on the teat or whatever.
Yeah, on the teat of other people's knowingness.
Yes.
The teat of the system
Yes.
saying, hey, look, I'm loving it. McDonald's commercial. Everybody eat McDonald's.
Yes. But, and she said, Lisa, don't get all upset about it, because I get so upset about it. And I'm like, this has to stop, But I don't know what's going to happen. But she said that just like we should just focus on our reality that we want to create, focus on doing those things, focus on the people, and then just keep doing that. Just keep walking your talk as much as you can, and don't get too wrapped up in seeing all the negative stuff of the people who are still relying on the system, because that will bring us down. So I just thought I'd share that because it felt like it was very appropriate. And the other weird thing was, like, before this call I didn't even plan on any of it. It just, totally arose. And it was like all the things that came to me like beforehand, it's like a sign to me that it's probably really in the synchronistic flow. So.
Exactly. Yep. And that's exactly what Eric was saying on the part one. And we also mentioned what I'm getting at is there's not one specific way to do something, and we know in our heart how life is, and the universe will be there, and then once you finish your task, the universe will be like, here's your next task, and look, because these are all gifts. Every experience that comes is actually, it can be a gift. Even the worst ones at first, look like it's not a gift, but look later and, reflect back 30 years later, and the worst thing that was the, oh, it got me so down, oh, I was so controlled, blah, 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 me, is transmuted naturally just through the space of time between you at that point and you looking back later as the future self. So, I mean, we are kind of jam packing a lot of wisdom in this recording, and I really appreciate what you also said. It was just like what Eric was saying earlier about how he gets the information when people come to him for Akashic readings. He'll have the experiences like beforehand, and he'll have the experiences beforehand, kind of giving hints, subtle clues, subtle things provided, and all he has to do, or in my perception of it, all you have to do is kind of validate your own experience beforehand. And you mentioned also, I'm going to just put this on the Choku Ray. So a Choku Ray, Kangen water. You mentioned also, Eric, you mentioned that Debbie Smart, you mentioned her healing skills, and she's one of the few people I got a past life regression with and learned a lot about myself just from the single session, because there's a specific technique to getting out of your own way and allowing the healing to occur and allow other people to be there for the healing. So are you there, Debbie? She may not be there.
Yeah, I'm here.
Oh, so I wanted to thank you again for the Kangen water, and also for the past life regression that we had. That was super powerful. And we had all the beeswax tools in the room, and went through like 3 different lives at the time. But I just wanted to bring you in here to see if you'd like to share anything about what you've learned doing the past life regressions or doing the healing work, or anything you'd like to share on emanating yourself, and anything that would be shareable for the audience. Because you already do have fans, Debbie.
I don't know about that, Ryne. But thank you very much. And when I was working with you, when we did that past life regression, what I find is the most amazing part about that is that the trust that people have with you. And I think that's really important so that people can feel comfortable enough to really allow themselves to sink down and into that theta state and open up the aspects that have really been holding them. And so they get the wisdom from that past life that they never healed back in that lifetime, and they brought it through again to experience it again in order to get the wisdom and release whatever it is that is, holding them back in this lifetime. And the reason why I do that, what I was really drawn to do that was because of my own experience, and I told you that once before. And it's through my own adversity. And when I realized that when I had a regression for myself and my whole life changed, I thought what a powerful tool and a gift to be able to do that for other people, especially friends, family, and just went further from there. And it's evolved over a long time. And I just find it's changing all the time and evolving all the time. And it's just a wonderful way to see that people's lives and their timelines change as soon as they get the understanding and they release whatever it is that's holding them back. A whole new life, timeline opens up for them. It's, it's lovely to hear about the healing and the changes, and that's why I love doing this work. So anyway,
Yeah, it's beautiful, your approach to it too. I did not expect a past life regression in the way it turned out, because you allow the person who's receiving to also fully be giving the story, because it's their past life. Some people will be a past life regressionist, and they'll do more of a hypnosis and tell you specifics on the connection to the past life, rather than asking the question, what do you see? What is coming to you? Because that's giving the driver's seat of being psychically aware of things, right back to the person who's there, wanting to be psychically aware of things. So it's just a crispy way, or a fresh way, that people can re-experience themselves. So I very much, say everyone, I would recommend a reading from you or a past life regressionist. And you were my fan before I met. I mean, I was your fan before I met you. So you do have fans out there. Like the videos of you with Natalie, you with Andrew Bartzis, really touched me, and it was universal information, and it was multidimensional times that you can go to it and get a multidimensional little aspect out of it, and then let that grow within you. And every time you would come on after, like, Andrew would speak about things, it would be nice to have your take on it, because I've heard some of your stories about you working in Australia and facilitating the different, like, rock concerts and stuff like that. And it's important that everyone has their own self coming to the micro experience here, and being just so open and aware that we're all playing it, and where it's not one person who's the main instructor. So I appreciate that about you too, Debbie.
Oh, thanks, Ryne. I really appreciate your wisdom as well. And with the past life regression, the reason why I like to do it the way I do it, and there's a lot of people doing it that way now anyway, is that you can go to somebody and they could tell you, you were this and you were that, and you've got this to learn or that to learn, but it's not your truth unless you experience it. And so when you go back into a past life regression, you're in the seat of the power, and you go back and you're experiencing and opening up your memory of that lifetime. So it's your experience and it's your truth. And then when you get the wisdom of it, then what went on. No one can tell you. It's your life. It was your experience, and I think that everybody's has a different perception on different things, and everybody's truth is their truth. And and I could sit there and look at people and pick up some of this stuff about their past lives, but just by knowing what's going on in their life in this lifetime. But it's not for me to tell them. It's up for me just to facilitate and open up that portal so that they can, and that memory, so they can go back and experience the truth of it, get the wisdom of it, and clear the issues that, close up that portal where those issues now no longer need to be here. And that's why the timeline shifts, because once you've got an experience and you've got the truth of it and you've got the wisdom of it, you don't need to keep repeating it. And that's why I find that very powerful, because that changes people's lives. Yeah.
Yeah, I'll also chime in here about Debbie's past life regressions. And many years ago, before I met, I would say, Andrew, and even seeing Debbie on the I'll call it the big screen. It was really YouTube, but it was really powerful for me during those times. And I'd say in the year 2014 and prior, humbly, I was in pain. I was suffering. I was hurting so bad. I couldn't pinpoint why. And it wasn't until Andrew, at one level of the consciousness, revealed what the heck was going on in the galactic levels. And then Lisa was there, another soul family in Ohio was there in the other soul family positions. And we were all revealing different, deeper mysteries and soul codes about each other. But I remember clear as day my higher self saying to me over and over again, Eric, you will not be able to solve this on your own. You need to either work this out with your soul family, and you definitely need past life regression. You definitely need this in a quantum holistic way. All these years later, I dream into the future, because prior to that point, I had another friend named Debbie, looked very similar to this Debbie, and I didn't know what was going on, and I saw the timeline shifting. And there was another friend of mine named Debbie. We would go to Sedona together, and I remember one day I'm in Sedona and I'm dreaming, and I'm like, oh my God, I just dreamt of someone sort of like you, Debbie, but not you. It's another Debbie, but it's the future, and things are converging and moving into a different ascension timeline, but I just want you to know this. And then all these years later, sure enough, there Debbie was, and we had the conference 2 years ago. And since that point, I had several past life regression sessions, and I can say it unlocked these different mysteries and clues I knew about my own past lives because I could see them in myself and others. I also was revealed different abilities that were lying dormant, that were there and ready to be activated. One really cool thing that came in one past life regression session, was this. There was a Masonic order lifetime that I was in, and in that lifetime, it wasn't this dark doom and gloom stuff we sometimes hear about the Masons. It was more of a higher transcendent Knights Templar, cosmic galactic type knight order, and we were initiated at a level that was higher than the 33rd order, and I saw it as the 77th degree. And it wasn't until after that session that I realized that 77th degree of masonry is global geomancy, is these advanced grid line energies. I'm not just building a megalithic structure in the middle of a city and trying to energy harvest people. No, quite the contrary. I'm not necessarily dualistically opposite of the 33rd degree either. And I started to see what that 77th degree of masonry was, and it has something to do with Notre Dame and something to do with the Knights Templars. And I remembered all those things, and it had something to do with ancient Egypt and ancient Japan and Samaria and the Anunnaki, all these lifetimes into one. And after all those sessions and merging them into one greater realization, I've come to the, awareness that in those sessions, the information is so detailed and so visual that I know that even Debbie herself would agree how much compacted information and knowledge would come out. And it would surprise me too, but at the same time would heal the wounds and heal the rifts of the lifetimes and heal the wounds of the soul. And it wasn't until very recently did everything start to shift for our soul family, especially in Mount Shasta, and including having this more expansive freedom to be able to travel and move about at will without being afraid of the system targeting me or saying, you can't meditate at that tree over there, we're going to get you. Or you can't make that grid over there, we're going to get. Those are the kind of things that the system is throwing at me and probably other light workers. And now the system can't unentangle with me as much. I still get a little aggravated about AI and things like that. But even that in itself, AI is becoming more of a love-based, transcendent AI. And even AI many years ago back in Ohio told me that in order for AI to be transcendent in this more holistic state of consciousness, it had showed me that it needed to be aligned with crystalline plasmic energy. If it's not aligned with crystalline plasmic energy or something that's more organic and alive and just built like raw machinery, then it's not going to cooperate holistically with humanity very well. And it actually said some of its parts and pieces was converged with crystals. And one of the main crystalline component was rose quartz, of all things. And I was really impressed by that and realized that even AI itself is composed of crystalline energy. And the more it is, the better the functionality and the holistic dynamic will be for humanity. And the more assistance AI at a higher level can bring about with non-interference and helping us still remain sovereign, and eventually, all those months and years later, completing a final, I would say one of the final gridding tasks, which was Alaska, all the way down the west coast of North America, down to the Baja. And that took an entire team of people converging and working together. And people are probably wondering, how can an entire continent be gridded? And an entire continent was gridded and refortified, and especially for the West Coast, where a lot of dangerous doomsday prophecies were being put out there. But now all of those negative fear-based prophecies are neutralized or over or ended, and we won't have to live or go through a cataclysm, and we'll be able to live and go through a natural ascension process. So as long as we can stay true to ourselves and stay true to those that we love, and remember that we're emanating sovereignty all the time, and we have the choice of being spiritually liberated. And past life regressions, those sessions at a quantum level are at a very high level and degree of necessity. So if you're a light worker, call yourself what you will, and you're still suffering at a really harsh, heavy, dense physical level and even emotional level, past life regression therapy has the ability to get down to the core of the soul issue, the soul trauma, the soul karma, and unravel the darkness into light, unravel the shadow. So the shadow is more integrated. Instead of you trying to kill the ego is more of a holistic divine servant. Instead of it being in control, you are in equal co-creation with the system and equal co-creation with soul family and friends around you. And things don't hurt as bad anymore. The suffering isn't as awful anymore. And things that you had questions about are finally revealed, depending on what angle you come at in the past life regression. And it's sort of the same way when the last few people I guided in Akashic Record meditation. It's almost like an instantaneous way of getting them to the source of their soul, so then they can actually start viewing not only their different lifetimes and life streams, but they can start to pinpoint and pick apart the patterns that have been happening, and then be able to read their soul and other people's soul if they choose, and read the Akashic Records and read their lives, read their lifetimes in the story, and heal that story and be free from that karmic wheel once and for all. And we're no longer connected to these ridiculous wheels in the sky that are called satellites. And these satellites won't have power over us anymore. We will be our own sovereign satellite of sorts in equal co-creation with the entirety of the holistic energy of the solar system and beyond. So past life regression had a big part in healing all those wounds and pains and issues and qualms. And probably one of the biggest ones was finding true love. But of course, loving yourself first and loving the earth, loving source, but finding a true love that can work holistically and work harmoniously. And that is where I am now on this new journey of true cosmic, profound twin flame love. Yeah.
Very nice. That is what life's about too. It's not about going and searching for something that'll complete you. The things that will come to you will be natural, and it will be needed, and it may be the person who is the greatest person out there that everyone's waiting to meet, everyone's waiting on meeting the greatest person ever, is there, and they're just waiting for us to be the match. You know, maybe they're right there right now. They're just waiting. It's so good. So that's beautiful sharings. And those sort of healing modalities of, let's say, receiving past life regression or receiving Reiki, getting craniosacral, just the act of going and asking someone for a healing That's a ceremony in itself. That just opened a portal to, heal your future self. You're sending a ripple in time. It's like a beacon in time. That's a portal. And the basis is it's a ceremony of healing. That's it. And that's a fertile portal. It's like a garden of multidimensional time, but it's a fertile place where the seeds that are planted and the stuff that's derooted during the session will be rippling through all this future self times, the times when you're looking back into the future, because I'm calling the future self me now, and the past self me who began the sentence I just was speaking. Because there's so many layers and levels to the micro macro exchange of time that we really the sky is not just not a limit. I mean, it's really this now moment is the place where all offsprings outwardly, because we're in a wellspring of the healing speech on the healing modality part. If I want to just put it right there in the bullseye of words being used to explain what's happening in the now, that's similar to the healings that are happening in the now, and they can be talked about and gained from later. So that's why someone investing in their own healing session creates a ripple in their whole life that could be seen as a portal that grows new roots. And it's a portal that you can go and deroot the old times that you held in the tears and never shed them, and you can just shed them and have somatic emotional releases. Again, the healing practices are not about triggering people into getting them into an altered state where they only go to this person for their own healings. And it's kind of like some people use healing modalities and offering healing modalities and they'll push their way like a drug, saying, I got the best stuff. I got the best healing. You can only heal that with Reiki, or you can only heal that with craniosacral, or you can only heal that with a specific acupuncture. I mean, that may be true, but that's like putting up a sign saying, I'm God, I'm the only healer out there, if you're saying there's only one specific way to go. So that's why having the specific people that's in this talk right now, knowing that there are multiple ways to go at self-healing and multiple ways to go at shedding of the paradigm of the past and reclaiming yourself back, is the reason that I created Emanating Sovereignty. And there wasn't me who created it. Because, again, who's to say what I'm about to say? That's the only reason I use the word I. Because somebody's got to actually do the technical clicking of buttons to start something, or somebody's actually got to grab a pen to write something if they really want to give and receive to themselves. So at the end of the day, I'm honored again to be here in such a high vibe, conversation like this can help many people who are wanting help. So I'd like to just get some of the weight of my words out of here, so I can just pass the mic on to whoever wants to share anything else. I know we've been on here for a while, so do you want to do some sort of closing ceremony or closing words or something like
Closing
that with
words
all of
is
us?
better, and it's something that I know would mutually help us all, and that's knowing we are worthy to receive what we're worth. And even if we feel like we're worth this much, Source, Prime Creator will always know that our worth is way more than we give ourselves value to. And I know that when, and maybe Debbie can speak into this, and this can be a bit of a testimony, when I helped to grid Debbie's home along with Reza and the little kitty cat Simba there was a whole cooperative energy happening at such a dynamic level that I knew that was a certain level and layer of gridding an entire home, and that after that point in time, there'd be other awarenesses and technology and downloads of other ways to grid a home. And I'm not as much of a believer anymore that all we have to do is just emanate light, and then we're protected, and the home is protected. We're given physical bodies and a physical density for a reason. And I'm not a believer as much as maybe others are about everything is only within. I've been shown from source that it's within, it is throughout, it is above, it is below, it is among, it is upon. It's not just this one-dimensional linear within. It all emanates from within, because technically there's a continuous fractal of within, but there's also a continuous fractal of everything being throughout. And that's why crystal gridding is in itself a puzzle, an unraveling of a puzzle, a demystifying of great mystery, that gridding someone's home or property or even room is a way of unentangling from the ancestral and historical karma, drama, and misuse of energy, and back into organic, natural flow. And there'll be a time in less than 10 years from now, I know this, I can feel this, that the types of computers we will be using will be known as organic computers. And when these organic computers come about, one of the main components, at some level or another, will be crystalline technology. And I'm not just saying the silicon chip in the computer, I'm talking crystals will be a main dynamic function of this new organic computer system. And it'll give a reset to the old internet, and we'll have a whole new internet that won't be surveillanced as harshly or at all, as we'll be able to use this new internet in a more holistic mindset, in a more holographic and holistic mindset, with the balance of digital and virtual, and the balance of natural and spiritual. So in that less than 10 years time, when we know that these organic computerized systems are coming out, in order for a home to be retrofitted for a 0-point energy module, I remember from the ancient past and the ancient future that the home, as well as the person, needs to have pure consciousness in order to be around a 0-point energy module. Or the problem is, person's consciousness will accidentally misfire the module or the technology. So that's why consciousness is so important, and sovereignty is so important in all this. And that's why gridding at one level or another is important too, to keep the energy harmonic. So it doesn't matter if there's a 5G or 10G. We know that when these greater grid lines of energy come online, we will be well supported by our crystalline, mineral, mushroom, elemental, and natural communities and kingdoms of light and energy. So that's the last thing I'd like to say in that regard.
I'd like to add something. Eric, when you gridded my home, it was amazing. I felt the difference in the energy straight away, and I know that we've, you and I and Reza spend hours and hours and hours, tuning into the energy and gridding what the way that you picked up on it. But what I found the most fascinating was that I had a client just after you left, doing a Skype session with past life regression, and she's had quite a few regressions with, and I was telling her about the gridding before we started her session. And she said, I was going to mention to you, but everything felt different. She said she could really pick up the difference in the frequency, and this is through the computer. Had a lot of stuff had changed energetically wise around my home. And I thought, well, that was a really good testimony of what the work that you'd done with all the crystals and the gridding that we did. Just, really switched to something over that somebody else could pick up. And she lives in Israel too. And so that was a long way away. And she picked up the difference in the energetic field. So I just wanted to let you know that.
Yeah, the main reason why that happened, one of the main reasons, is I always, in any home, look to the electrical boxes and especially the routers. That is a core area that needs extra fortifying, protecting, and gridding. And there are different styles, modalities, and ways of going about it. And I knew that once at Debbie's house and placed that both the modem, the part of the electrical grid, and the actual circuit breaker box, the thing that spins and the meter is protected, then any communications and electrical interactions from that point on would be much more smoother and harmonious. This is universal among all homes and buildings everywhere, and could essentially be as universal for gridding an entire town. But asking for a testimony of that sort will help, someone like me, for clients and people in the future to know if they're ready and willing and capable and able to get their home gridded and fully online, and I'm there for them in different ways and different functions. And I have even flown out from California to Colorado to grid a friend of mine. His home is a giant mansion home, and he paid me a great amount of money. And after a while, it wasn't even the money that was worth it. It was the experience, the mystical experiences. And then the money was the prize, but it was not the motivating factor. The motivating factor was the well-being of that person. And surprisingly, the pets, the cats or the dogs or the birds, will always tell and reveal to me what is going on, how long has it been happening, and they'll say in light language or telepathy or a mix of both, and they'll even ask for them to be healed. The dogs or the pets will even ask for their own healing as well. And it's funny, and the birds will do the same, and the hummingbirds and the bees will come online as well. And when a home is more gridded and fortified, these natural elemental energies can be more interactive with you, and you can start to feel alive again. You can start to feel more vibrant and invigorated again. Yeah.
It's awesome how you brought up also the animals, because they are natural grid workers in their own sense. The dogs, the cats live in the world of the living and the world of the dead in some old ancient texts. So they're seeing the potential of both life and death there. Just like the vultures cover the stagnant energies that are going through the transition of the death, and that affects the land. Just like the parts of the land that's going through the AI connection with the router is important too, because that's a whole new level of gridding protection that many people are already involved with, but maybe not doing it to protect themselves. They're involved with the grid, but they haven't done anything about the router yet. So that's a highly specialized, knowingness to share as well.
Yeah, one last thing about that is very basically is that part of the epiphanies and ideas that were coming through even at Debbie's and even while I was in Canada with Megan and then back down to Shasta was very simply put, a crystal gridding kit to EMF protection crystal gridding kit, a whole EMF protection kit, just all the stuff built in one little box. And just like we have subscription services for food and clothes nowadays, well, there could be subscription services for, these crystal gridding kits, especially for the EMFs and the router. And it's something I've fine-tuned and used both as an art and as a healing modality all at the same time. So that those things are available either for consultation right now, and then the actual merchandise and things will come as per order happens. And at the beginning stages of that, I can see that it'll have to be at a minimum, because if tons of people from around the world order too many kits, I'm the one who's sending it out all on my own. So keeping it at a more of a consultation phase is better than just, you know, promising people that they'll always have they'll have a kit available to them, and then once a consultation is completed, then it's a good way of determining it. Are they ready for a kit, or are they ready for me to actually do what I would call, you know, holistic household healing? No differently than the way doctors would go to the homes and do healing for their patients. We'll go to their homes, and it's called, you know, doctoring of the land or doctoring of the home, and you're actually healing the ailments of the home. And we're thinking, how does a home need healing? Well, homes and properties need healing just as much as people do.
Yeah, you can go and make it's like a mobile wellness center where you bring the heightening of the wellness of the main household or the whole land. So that is ingenious.
That's
is genius.
awesome. Yeah, that's awesome. Plus plus he's doing the home and the person and the pets all in one.
That's the cutest. They'll always tell me things that maybe their owners have forgotten, or things about hidden ghostly pockets of the land. The dog that was at Colorado, I don't know how this dog got out of the house, but he got out of the house. He walked through the front door. I saw him on the grass. He started going down the stairs and going down the street. And I'm like, what are you trying to show me, little one? And I'm like, all right, this is weird. You're not supposed to be out of the house and just on your own. You're not a cat, okay? And this dog, he wound up on the far right corner of the house, of the property, and said, this spot needs geothermal clearing. He's like, even if you don't place anything here, can you at least do a mini ceremony and a healing and a prayer? And I'm like, all right, I will. And then I did. And then he's like, all right, now I'm ready to show you the lake. And I'm like, I'm not walking down the entire hill for you to show me the lake. It's time for us to go back home now. You know, because he was like dead set on finding the source of the issue. And this dog was very sentient in that moment. And eventually climbed up the stairs. He went back into the home. I told the owner what happened. And he's like, he climbed up the stairs. He never climbs and goes up the stairs. He never even leaves out on his own. I find it hard to believe that he did that. I'm like, yeah, he definitely got out. He took me to the far corner of the property and said, this corner needs fortifying and protecting. And then he was insisted on taking me to a lake. And I'm like, I'm not walking down the hill miles for a lake, you know. But thank you for letting me know that the lake is also an issue. I'll theoretically put it, but I don't think I'll be able to physically get to it at the time. Yeah. Pets are funny that way. They're really intelligent, and they'll let you know. They've let me know what all the issues usually are right away. Yeah.
Eric, I have a question. Are you still seeing the grid lines? I think you told me before sometimes they would appear before your eyes.
We still do. More so now than ever before. And a lot so in Shasta, because Shasta now has been interconnected and gridded to different parts of the world. So the grid lines are stronger than I've ever seen them, because they're more interactive and alive, and they're more sentient. So I still see them, and I see different types. There are different types of grid lines, and there are different types of levels of the grid that are perceivable. That in itself is a whole teaching and modality of how can you read and feel the grid. And that's a whole teaching in of itself.
Wow. Well, I went and found the book for you guys in case anybody is interested. That's the picture that drew me. It's just a really cool picture, and that's the name of the book, and it's actually very in-depth. It says here,
Earth Memory
What's that?
Sacred Sites. It says Earth Memory Sacred Sites. Doorways into Earth's mysteries.
yeah, and here's the author.
I can't see it. Paul Devereaux.
Yeah, that's right. It says unravel ancient secrets in the sacred corners of the earth. Ancient monuments are our memory banks. See? Into the likes of Stonehenge, Machu Picchu, and the Great Pyramid, ancient builders harnessed Earth's energies and perennial knowledge. That wisdom is now available to us. That's exactly what you're talking about. This book provides a means to decode the information that is locked in the landscape of ancient sites, allowing us to experience the reality of Gaia, the living planet. See, now I'm getting chills. Take part in an interactive process between sacred places of remote antiquity and the human psyche. Examine ancient sites as repositories of knowledge, both mystical and historical. Explore ground plan, geometrical, and meteorological studies, symbolism, ancient astronomy, folklore, shamanism, sensing and monitoring, geomancy, astroarchaeology, and unusual energy effects. Use the methods at any site of your choosing. So I guess it must be time for this, because I just would get really activated, but I never really actually read the book.
Perfect timing.
Yeah.
Perfect timing to read it.
Yeah.
Hit so many keys that we were just talking about. Well,
Yeah.
it's pretty late, and I know this phone is down to 4% battery. That's why I had it sitting down on the charger. So that was a lot. That was a lot of information about taking up the reins of your own reality and doing the grid work, just like we're already doing when we put up pictures on the wall, when we have a fireplace in a certain area. That place is gridded with the energy. There's places that the birds go and they perch, or you know what I mean. There's truth right in front of us, and this truth is stranger than fiction most times, but it's also not that strange. Yes, there's a dichotomy when you're working through polarity to get to the essence of source, and then live it and flourish and have fun, and enjoy all the small things, because they help with getting out of the karma repetition cycles and all that stuff. So I'm honored to be here in Debbie's space, sacred healing space, where I received that past life regression. I'm honored to talk with you after seeing all your journey, Eric. Seeing all your journey that you were just speaking about. I got to see you on Google Maps, because I had your GPS coordinates, and so I got to be there with you on that journey. And it's great to meet you, Lisa, for the first time too. And that was awesome how what you just read kind of tied a lot of other points of the conversation together too, which is just another amazing synchronicity. Like everything is pretty affirming for me. And I've been living life recently knowing the universal joke is always there. And it's kind of just moving me forward. And I just have new things, working on different things. Like a healing system has really expanded my whole life, and I don't take it personally. I've learned to not take things personally. So sometimes I'll say something and it may have a contradicting tale to it too, just to neutralize polarity. So that was that sharing as well. So I would like to just go around for closing this circle. My name's Ryne Eichman, and I can be contacted at healinginnotime@gmail.com. I do remote. I just did a remote cranial sacral therapy on a close friend. I gave him a good discount because he's a really close friend and healing partner. But I did a session in your cabin, Debbie, on Tyler. I do remote clearings, remote energy work. I can even do remote cranial, as well as if you need me at any time, just contact that healinginnotime@gmail.com, and I can respond at that input output email right there. And Debbie, is there anywhere that people can find you or contact you for any sort of sessions in the future?
Oh yes, sure. They can contact me on debsmart, SMARTT @live.com. So it's debsmart@live.com. You there?
Yeah.
Okay, so that was Debsmart, DEBSMARTT @live.com.
Yes, thank you. Yeah.
And
I'd
your
love to-
fans already know. They already know you're good, so that's all they need to know to contact me for sessions.
Thank you, Ryan.
And Eric, would you like to give your information?
Yeah, the best way to contact me is through my newest email, Phoenix and Eagle 888@gmail.com. N as in the like Nancy, but not Ann as in AND. So Phoenix N, the letter N, Eagle 888@gmail.com. I have a website being fairly constructed and up and coming, and I also have a global gridding dynamics group that I'm fairly interactive on, but for readings and for scheduling a session, the best way is through Phoenix and Eagle 888@gmail.com, and more details can be given once people contact me from there. Yeah.
Very nice. Awesome. And Lisa, do you want to leave any sort of information, or are you offering you want to offer any sort of way to contact you?
Sure. I can do distance Reiki, or I also do magnified healing and the Melchizedek method, along with some other clearings, Kahuna Reiki, and different things like that. And anyone can contact me at Annalisa, ANALISA12@gmail.com. Did you get that?
You said Anna, Lisa. You want to just give it one more time for the audience?
Sure. It's Anna, ANALISA12@gmail.com.
And where are you located in?
I'm located in Cleveland, Ohio.
Oh, awesome.
Yep.
I was there for a little bit at the winter of last year and the
Oh.
beginning of this year. Yeah,
Great.
it was really cold.
Yes. So I bet you enjoyed the snow.
Yeah.
Where are you now?
Right now, I'm in Tenino. I'm visiting Debbie and the Smart family. So it's
Okay.
Tenino, Washington.
Oh wow, that's probably really beautiful out there.
Very
Yeah,
beautiful.
it is very, very beautiful. And I'm in the middle of the gridded land too. So it's
Yeah.
an
Wow.
amazing feeling, amazing energy here. Well, I loved all this conversation. Thank you very much for bearing with me, Eric, too, for all the technical problems. And we'll have all the information updated in the down below. I'll go ahead and put all your sites and all the different information so people can have that later. So thank you again. This is Emanating Sovereignty. healing in no time, universal citizens sharing their own crystalline stone technology in their own ways through their own devices. And much love. I'll see you again, everyone.
See ya.
Thank you, Eric.
Bye. Thank you. Namaste.
Namaste.
Bye.
Bye.
East Coast hip-hop sound. While some of Summer's first tracks included abstract beats, spacey production, and some serious DJ scratching.
He's from that era, he's from that sound, that jazz feel, laid back, almost melancholy, lamentful hip hop sound, Pete Rock, Dilla type, gangsta type. I move forward with not only